Cageside with John Morgan.
And welcome back, Cageside with John Morgan, post 299. Amazing show. The Suga Show reigns supreme. Dustin Poirier is still that guy. MVP makes it look easy. What is next for the Suga Show? I don't know about controversy. We'll get into it with what he does next. And then Francis Ngannou takes a vicious knockout loss in Saudi Arabia Friday night. We'll get into all of that and what it really means. Without further ado, oh man, he was at 299, and I saw you doing one of these. Oh, on that spinning back fist knockout. Follow him on Twitter, JohnMorgan_MMA. What up, John Morgan?
What's going on, man? Yeah, that was a pretty funny moment. I mean, 299 was great from start to finish. That literally was the first fight of the night. And I don't know what it was, man. I mean, you know how it is. Look, we love the sport. We're fans at the end of the day. But, you know, we got to be professional when we're doing our jobs. And I try to be professional.
Yeah, good one on that one,
man. I know, that spinning back fist, it just caught me out of nowhere. I think it was like, man, it's her last fight. It was Joanne Wood. You know, she's going out with retirement. Like, she hits that spinning back fist. And I thought for sure she had knocked out Marina Moroz. And, yeah, it's so funny because it's just – you know how it is. It's involuntary. Like, I'm sure you've had moments where you're in the cage refereeing a fight and you probably want to do that. Yeah. You know what I mean? And you got to catch yourself. And in that particular moment, for whatever reason, I just forgot to catch myself. And I was like, whoa. And immediately my phone started blowing up with text messages and Twitter messages and people just laughing. They're like,
my eye at least, I didn't even notice you prior to that. I mean, my eye darted straight to it. I mean, it was funny. It made me chuckle.
It was funny. It was good. So if you want to see me being completely unprofessional and just losing my stuff because of an amazing highlight, go check out Twitter because it's there.
All right. Well, UFC 299, the Suga Show reigns supreme. He wins via unanimous decision. In reality, making it look easy. I'm going to say our predictions were right, but it was a lot easier than we kind of eventually evolved to in our discussion.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I think we both take pride in having some knowledge of the game and being, I think I know how this fight's going to go. And sure enough, as the fight was unfolding, you know, we kind of said, hey, I'm sure O'Malley's going to get out to that early lead. He's the quick starter, you know, and he definitely did that. But we were like, hey, Cheeto's not going away. He's as tough as they come. And, you know, as it gets late, I would take a look at Cheeto and watch the damage he does. And boy, as he started round 4, he came out looking to really put something on. But yeah, as the fight was over, I thought, man, I think we kind of had it right. But the way that Sean O'Malley responded in those later rounds, the way that he was able to match that output that Cheeto Vera, and to be fair, we didn't say that he wouldn't be able to. We just said we've never seen it before. So we want to see how he responds late. How does he do things? And it turns out, guess what? He's pretty dang good at it, man. And he did such a good job when Cheeto would try to make it a brawl. Sean would make sure, hey, no, we're not doing that. We're going to make this a technical showcase. We're going to make this a striking masterpiece. And man, that sniper ability he has, the speed that he has, all those things that he's capable of, man. He is just good. If you're a guy that doesn't like Sean O'Malley, you better get used to seeing him around for a while because he's not a flash in the pan. He's not fake. He's not just, you know, hair and pink shorts. The kid is good, and he is a deserving champion.
Yeah, he's super good. And going back to my take last week when previewing this card, I said, we're going to see the dog in O'Malley. I'm sure that he's going to meet Cheeto in the middle of the cage in those later rounds and meet fire with fire. And he did that. And so he does have the, and for anybody to say that he doesn't have the dog in him, you're crazy. He does. We saw it. But he had the dog, to your point, what you just said, in a very technical way. And he's like, no, yeah, it was just a brilliant, brilliant performance. And how tough is Cheeto?
Oh, I mean, you know, if you're somebody else in the bantamweight division, I think at this point for the rest of his career, you go, well, we know we're not knocking him out, so let's figure something else out. You know what I mean? Like, that dude just ain't going away.
That knee doesn't flatline you. What does?
Bro, that knee was nasty. The sound that it made was horrific, and I thought for sure that was it. And man, it hurt him for sure, but he fought right out of it. I mean, that dude is tough as nails.
The amount of clean shots that he ate, I don't care whether you say O'Malley got massive power or he doesn't have massive power. That's hard for anybody in the UFC to take.
Yeah, he took a ton of damage, and it was the kind of performance. And look, I know Cheeto. I gave him a little fist bump as he was walking by press row after, and didn't really get to share words. He didn't come to the press conference. The UFC, obviously, for obvious reasons, sent him off just for precautionary reasons to get checked out medically. So we haven't got to talk to him yet, but I could just see in his demeanor. I've been around him a lot. I think he was probably disappointed in the result, but that's one of those fights, man, that you just want to tell him, like, bro, don't be disappointed, man. All of your countrymen that made the journey, man, they're proud of you. You know what I mean? Everybody around you, they're proud of the effort that you had, man. You took some damage and you kept going. You fought a guy that's just really, really good. And, man, just kept moving forward and tried to make it a fight to the bitter end. In fact, made it such a fight until the bitter end that at the end of the fight, you could see Sean O'Malley, like, sat down next to the cage and was sitting there for a while. I mean, sometimes people sit there, and I asked him about it afterwards. I'm like, was that physical tiredness? Was that, like, mental fatigue? Like, why did you sit down so long? And he straight up said, and kudos to Sean O'Malley for being honest, he's like, no, man, he cracked me with a body shot right at the end. He's like, that hurt so bad, I had to sit down for a little bit because it was painful.
Yeah, and he no-sold it good enough, like where he was tired, but I did see the shot, and Rogan even mentioned, he's like, no, that's a body shot he took, and they replayed it on the broadcast. I don't really think we need to break down the fight because it was a clean sweep. It just was. Even though Cheeto did come on at the very end, he was met with overwhelming firepower, even in those later rounds. So it's not really much to break down. But where he goes from here, there's tons to break down there, right? He gets in the cage. He calls out Ilia Topuria, and then he throws in, but if you want me to beat Merab's ass, I'll do that as well. Merab takes exception to it, and then Dana White really is like, Topuria ain't happening, and I just have to say this. I have my take on it, but I want to hear what do you want to see O'Malley do next?
You know what's interesting is I don't hate the Topuria call out, right? Because I love stylistically these two guys. I think they're amazing champions. I think those two guys talking smack to each other would be absolutely incredible. And so I love the idea of it. But you know what? I don't love it right now. I want to see Merab Dvalishvili. I like for me, number one, I'm not necessarily a fan of people jumping divisions. I know it was Conor McGregor that started the champ thing, and now everybody wants to be a champ. And that's the mark of greatness, is not holding one title, but two titles. I see it differently. I think the mark of greatness for me is dominating a division. I love when people go through every contender in the division. There's nobody you haven't beat. That's what I like to see. So if you're going to switch divisions, I like a little bit of, defenses in there first. And that's what needs to be done. Merab Dvalishvili is a very, very deserving contender. The win streak that he's put together, the names that he's beat, he deserves this opportunity. And let's be honest. I mean, we've sung his praises multiple times here. Stylistically, it's a tough fight for Sean O'Malley. Stylistically, Merab is tough for anybody. So it's a fight I want to see. But I think even more so because a little bit of the media was talking about it afterwards in the press room. And, a lot of people are like, man, I'm excited for Ilia Topuria. That would be an amazing fight. And it would be. But I feel like, and maybe I'm interested to hear what you take. I think it's too soon for it to really be appreciated. I don't think the casuals right now know how good both these guys are. I feel like maybe this was a big moment for Sean O'Malley. I feel like he took a big step forward, right? I mean, there's no longer the doubt. He's defended his title. I feel like he took a big step forward. But I don't know that the general public knows how good both those guys are. So I do want to see Sean O'Malley and Ilia Topuria. I just don't want to see it right now.
Okay, yes, and no. That's my take. That okay.
All right, and done, and we'll move on. No, explain.
So, is Merab the clear-cut number one? Does he deserve it? Yes. Would it be, in most people's eyes, sidestepping the juggernaut of the division? Is it going to be perceived that way? 100%. Is it too soon? To a degree. Yes, it's too soon. Neither one of these guys are cemented in their division at this point.
Right.
Let's just be, flat out in what we're saying. The reason I do want to see that fight next is because of the spectacle it will be. I am a fan of attractions, right? I am a fan, like UFC in it, or the UFC 300 in itself, not even a singular fight on the card, is an attraction, right? Going to Spain and Ilia Topuria headlining a card is cool. You know, even if you have Volk, it's not the attraction that it could be. From my standpoint of being like, I know UFC 300 is going to be like WrestleMania-esque, right? That's how they're trying to market it. It's almost like our WrestleMania. Just imagine what O'Malley Topuria would be like in their first venture to Spain, the hometown Spaniard holding the strap. And then you have this guy in O'Malley coming up a division to fight him in there. And I say all that is just no disrespect, Merab. Like, I actually think he is the betting favorite against O'Malley.
Yeah.
But I'm just talking about the spectacle that it would be. And that would be like, gosh, how excited would we be for that?
Yeah, and you've done such a good job of laying out the case that I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't realize we were talking about in Spain was on the table. If that's on the table, then you know what? Take everything I say and know that I believe it and know that I mean it. Know that everything I just told you is the truth and how I feel, and understand that I'm willing to just wad it up and throw it out the window so that I can see that in Spain, because you are right. I mean, the idea, and let's be honest with you. We always talk about the business side of things as well, right? And you just talked about spectacle. Let's just say, hey, which of those two fights is selling more pay-per-views? No question about it. It's going to be, if it was Ilia Topuria and Sean O'Malley. Merab Dvalishvili. I do think Merab Dvalishvili is stepping forward in popularity. People are seeing the personality. They're seeing the fight style, and they like it. But, man, the buildup between O'Malley and Topuria would be amazing. And now if you're talking about the fact that it could be in Spain and we could do it there, and we're not saying we can because, as you mentioned it, I asked Dana White about it, and he was like, look, things change. Tuesday matchmaker meetings happen, and people start talking about dollars and cents and moving parts. So things can change. So nothing is ever set in stone. But he kind of ruled it out. But I will grant you that very much. While I believe Merab Dvalishvili is the deserving number one contender and needs to fight for the title next, if the possibility is of doing that fight in Spain for the debut and doing it, oh my gosh, I mean, at the Bernabeu, the soccer stadium for Real Madrid. I mean, if you're talking about doing something like that, then at that point you start taking, the meritocracy of rankings out. And as you said, you start worrying about spectacle.
And that's my only point with it. Like, does that fight headline, let's say their July card in Vegas, then it's Merab.
Right.
It's Merab at that point.
Yep.
Okay. But I'm just saying, like, Ilia said Spain. Dana White in the past, after Ilia's win over Volk, said Spain. And then I think just caught up in the emotion and not thinking business-wise that night at the press conference, Dana White was almost like, it's too soon. It's not there. Everything you just said, right? Dana White would almost regurgitate that thing, and he did to one degree or another at the post-fight. But when they sit down and they said, hey, listen, Spain's on the table, this, that, and the other, Dana White's a businessman.
Yep.
And if that is on the table, I'm calling this shot right now. It is going to be O'Malley, and it is going to be Topuria, and it is going to be in Spain. And let's say that's a midsummer, end of the summer thing. It's going to happen.
I like your prediction, man, because I'm thinking about it right now. And it's funny, right? I mean, you've seen enough press conferences. Dana White immediately goes, we don't match make right after. We wait till Tuesday. So I've kind of started changing how I ask the question a little bit because I know what the answer is going to be. So now I'm like, well, they're talking about changing weight classes. Do you like that? He's like, no. So we got a little bit of an answer out of him, right? Dustin Poirier. I was like, is he going to be in the title discussion? And he's like, kind of leaned on it a little bit, right? So he said it. So you're right. Because I kind of changed it, he did kind of rule it out. But you're 100% right. When they get in that room together, if Hunter Campbell and the matchmakers are all saying, look, here's what we're thinking. And as you said, Spain is on the table. Oh, by the way, Dana, while we were flying home the other day, I got a call from, the prime minister over in Spain. And he said he'd love to have us over there. And oh, by the way, they're breaking out the checkbook to cut us a little check to have us over there. Yeah, that fight's getting done. And I would feel terrible.
I would venture to say That would be and put McGregor's numbers in this. That would rival any McGregor pay-per-view, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would. Outside of like the ridiculousness of when he fought Mayweather, of course, because that wasn't, that was a whole different spectacle. But in terms of just, yeah, I agree with you. And listen, at that point, I would feel terrible for Merab. I really would, because he's done everything he can. But that's just one. You nailed it. I mean, spectacle, right? You're looking for the biggest matchups possible. That's the biggest. I mean, that is literally one of the biggest fights you can make in the sport right now. And it's why I want to hold off a little bit. But as you said, the scenario that you laid out, that would be awfully cool.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know where else to go from there other than spectacle. Golly, that would be just fun. And I'm not even we hadn't even talked about what the fight could potentially do. I'm just talking about just the tsunami of press and us pundits and our talking heads going over it and talking about Spain in a big soccer arena, and it would just be tremendously fun. The hype machine around the UFC, what they could do with that scenario would be mind-blowing.
I was just looking up their ages as well. I mean, we're obviously both big fans of those guys, but Sean O'Malley, 29, Ilia Topuria, 27. So it's like this next generation of athletes, you know what I mean? They've got an appeal to the younger generation of fans as well. I mean, look, hey, I'm comfortable enough in myself to say it. Those two dudes are cool, bro. They got swagger. You know what I'm saying? Like, both of them, you just look at them.
One's a kingpin. The other one is just this new wave thing that I can't explain, but yet cool.
Get it. Just super cool, man. So, I mean, the type of media attention that they would get, I mean, I feel bad. I feel like I need to reach out to Merab right now and offer him an apology, because I feel like I'm already booking the fight as well. Here I was making the case that you can't push Merab Dvalishvili aside. Now I'm making the case that Merab might just have to wait for a little bit, because we got some business to handle over in Madrid.
Yeah. Hey, make the call to Belal Muhammad too at the same point, would you?
Woo!
What is going on there?
What is going on? I mean, listen, it sounds like the UFC is trying to book an England event for late summer, and that's got to be the spot, right? It's got to be Leon Edwards, Belal Muhammad. But yeah, man, that poor guy, thank God he's got a positive attitude and a positive energy about him, because he has got to be getting frustrated of just like, why? I've done everything. Why are they not calling me? It's got to be frustrating.
Well, did you see at the press conference for, what was it, 298? Or it might not have been a press conference. It was a Q&A session with fighters, and a fan said, hey, Belal, do you think you can win a street fight by decision?
I did see that. It's so wrong. That's so wrong.
Dude, I don't know why. Listen, Belal is a beast, and I spit out my drink when that happened.
I mean, listen, we love the guy. I love Belal Muhammad, man. I think he's a great dude. But a funny joke is a funny joke, right? Yeah. Like, I mean, sometimes you just gotta laugh. Like, if somebody says something about you, but it's funny, you know what I mean? You're like, that kind of hurt my feelings, but all right, you got me. You
think that has anything to do with it?
100%. Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, look, we said it, right? As we were talking about, hey, what are they gonna do for UFC 300? We both kind of said, like, I mean, no offense, but you can't do that as the main event of UFC 300. And so, I mean, I think they just feel like they're kind of in a spot. Like, is it a pay-per-view headliner, or does it have to be a co-main event with something else? Like, where can it be? I think the idea of taking it to England helps a lot, right? Because now you got Leon Edwards in his backyard, and that means a lot. So I do. And look, I think some of it is
they also
unfair.
know a funky start time headlined by that is not going to draw a lot of pay-per-views.
Well, but you know what? I mean, you probably go, well, we didn't think it was going to draw a lot of pay-per-views anyway. And again, not trying to be rude, but that's probably one where you say that's probably going to be on the lower end of the spectrum. So you know what? Let's go ahead and put it as one of these, as you said, those off-timed pay-per-views where we do it in prime time in England. It happens on an afternoon. We didn't think it was going to sell that great anyway in the United States, so let's just do that. That's probably, I would guess. I mean, obviously, they're never going to admit that to you, but if you just think about it as a smart businessman, you run an operation, you understand. Well, if we were already going to take a hit, why don't we just take the double hit on this pay-per-view instead of taking one hit here and one hit on another one? It would seem to make sense.
Yeah. All right, we got sidetracked on that, but let's get back to 299 co-main event. Dustin, the Diamond Poirier, takes out the young lion, as he called him, Benoit Saint Denis, and it was looking rough on the onset for DDP, not DDP.
Well,
Benoit,
Dustin Diamond Poirier.
yeah, BSD, right? It was looking rough for the Diamond early on. And I actually turned to my wife and I said, Dustin's going to catch him. Because you just saw, I saw Benoit. I mean, he's throwing from his hip. Yep. And he was moving forward. And to me, like, I don't want to say like I'm this masterful guy, but, you know, Dustin was so calm in all the chaos that to me, I actually just looked at it, and I've seen Dustin do it this way so many times. He's being overwhelmed by Michael Chandler off the get-go. He stays calm. He gets his finish. In all these scenarios, the one thing that I always notice about Dustin, he's just so calm and composed in these big moments in the chaos, and that's why I just said he's going to catch him. But man, what I was really worried about coming in for Dustin is what played out literally within 2 minutes of the fight. And what's a I don't know about a stigma, but how has he been finished? I mean, you looked at he'd been finished by rear naked choke a couple times. Right. And he got his back taken early and he survived against a guy whose jiu-jitsu is supposed to be out of this world, as well as a guy who's just a wrecking machine. He stayed calm and composed. He didn't give up the neck, and masterful performance.
It really was. I mean, listen, I am a Dustin Poirier fan. I don't know how you could be a fan of MMA and not be a Dustin Poirier fan. I mean, obviously his fighting style, but, anything you know about the guy outside of the cage, you never hear a bad word about him. He's just a good human being, a good dude. I've said it before, a great representative of the sport. But the calmness that he has, that's what comes with time, right? The guy's been in the UFC since 2011. He was in the WEC before that, the highest level of the sport, for 14 years. So that's what experience brings you, right? We talk about it, and I love the word that you use, chaos, man. A mixed martial arts fight, a cage fight, it is chaos. Things are happening so fast and so quickly. And when you've been in there for literally hours of your life, you're able to kind of slow things down a little bit and remain calm and not panic, right? And he's able to do that. And you could absolutely see it, as you said, surviving some bad spots on the ground, which really has been his Achilles heel, and he was able to battle out of that and then eventually just clipped Benoit with the big shot and then another coffin nail on the ground. And it was just, I cannot tell you the energy inside that building in Miami. I mean, obviously people were cheering for Benoit Saint Denis as well. I mean, there were some French fans in there that were cheering, but people just like the guy, man. I mean, right? He's what we want, man. He's aggressive. He's exciting. He finishes fights. And look, as you said,
people love Hitman. He's a hitman in the UFC.
He is, man. And I thought, look, they looked like they were in different weight classes in there, man. I mean, he's absolutely huge for the division. And I thought early on, I'm like, gosh, this is not going Dustin's way, man. This is going to be a bad night for him. But he just showed that heart that he has. He showed the calmness under fire as he had delivered the big shot. And man, just the feel good vibes of that. You know what I mean? And not that anybody was cheering against Benoit Saint Denis, but you just have to cheer for Dustin Poirier. Huge win. And now you start talking about potential title shots. I mean, you got Islam Makhachev, the manager, Ali Abdelaziz. There was a clip that came out earlier in the week, if you saw that pre-fight, where he said, hey, man, you get this done. Let's do it in June. And then, man, sure enough, if he didn't live up to his word afterwards and went straight to social media and said, hey, let's do it in June. And Dustin was a little hesitant the night after, but I've seen he's since taken to social media as well and said, well, I guess it's Islam in June. Let's get this thing booked. And I love it, man. I love that opportunity for Dustin Poirier. It looks like it might happen.
Yeah, I mean, I want to go back. We talked last week when we were so shocked by the line of this fight. And I'm like, it's surely's got to close. It widened at fight time.
I know.
You know what? The line was minus 220 for Benoit Saint Denis as the bell hit.
It shows the respect. That dude is dangerous. I mean, the fights that he's been finishing, again, the size difference that he had, everything that he brought to the table, man, I believe it. I was still shocked to see it, but I understand it. That dude is dangerous.
Yeah. Now, Benoit came out with a statement, I believe it was yesterday, saying, hey, and if it's true, great. there's a lot to make of the timing of it, right? But I can attest, 100% when you're on antibiotics, it crushes you. So essentially he came out and said, hey, I've been on pre-fight antibiotics from an infection that I had. I only had 1 round to give, and I gave it my all in that 1 round. Are we taking that with a grain of salt or what?
No, I think he's 100% spot on. Like, some people noticed some of the pre-fight pictures that were circulating. He had like a lesion on his head that was, staph infection appeared to be. And so it adds up. It's not one of these things that came out of nowhere. We're like, what are you talking about? I mean, people were kind of supposing going into it. It's a weird situation, right? Because it ends up sounding like excuses if you want it to, you know what I mean? And I don't think it is an excuse. Again, I think it's 100% logical. I think it all adds up, and I think he's just being honest and transparent, and that's okay. I think he wants to tell people, listen, here's what happened. Here's why I know it'll be better. It's a double-edged sword there, right? Because you want to be as transparent and as open with your fans as possible and let people kind of know what's going on. But if somebody wants to say it sounds like sour grapes, they can, you know what I mean? And so that's why I think those kind of post-fight revelations are, unless you're victorious, I feel like they're always a little bit dangerous because people can kind of point them out and pick on you if they want to. I don't think they should. I think he's being 100% honest. I take it at face value for sure.
I take it at face value only because I dealt with the same exact thing. So this was, 2 years ago. I actually got staph on my head, right? And they had to culture it out. And then I had to put on antibiotics. Now I was already signed up for a jiu-jitsu tournament, an IBJJF event. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm on antibiotics now. So I'm like not infectious anymore. I'm doing it. And I was still on antibiotics. And I'll tell you what now, like I had never, there's adrenaline dumps. And then there's pure, just like, I just cannot get out of first gear. I am so fatigued. And that's what happened to me. Like, I was so tired. And in fact, I was set up to do both gi and no gi in the same day. In the morning, I do my gi tournament. In the afternoon, I was going to do my no gi tournament. I had to pull out. Now, I did win absolute still, just letting you know. But I'm telling you, I've done that numerous. I've had 10 matches in a day before, right?
Yeah.
I've never pulled out of anything because I was tired. I had to pull out of and I didn't have to go as hard. In jiu-jitsu, I can really slow things down. But I had to pull out a no-gi just because I physically felt like I couldn't stand up anymore. I was that fatigued, and it was 100% due to the antibiotics. So there is a lot of credence in what he says. But there is, in my opinion, more credence to the dog that Dustin Poirier is for having to withstand what he withstood in round number 1. And do I think Dustin could have met fire with fire absolute in that first round and turned it into a dogfight and maybe had the same outcome? I do believe that. But I believe the brain of Dustin, the calmness of him, the experience says, let me have this guy get out most of his juice now. I truly believe that.
I agree. Yeah, Dustin knows he's going to be there. I mean, think about it. There's a reason he asked for it to be a 5-round fight, right? He's like, I know my gas tank's there. Obviously, he didn't end up needing to use it, but that just goes to show you the mindset that he had coming in, that he wanted it to be 5 rounds. And listen, the dude is a stud. There's no question about it. And Benoit Saint Denis will be back. It's interesting to hear because, listen, we have heard it multiple times. This is not the first guy to come out and say, look, man, I was on antibiotics and it crushed my cardio. So to hear your firsthand experience, man, makes all the sense in the world. The guy will be back, but this was a huge moment for Dustin Poirier. A moment that afterwards he admitted was kind of coming in with a little bit of a tentativeness to himself. I mean, he felt the pressure, the preparation of coming off a loss and not wanting to lose 2 in a row and, questioning kind of where do I stand at this point in my career, and he's financially independent at this point. He no longer fights for the money. He fights because he absolutely loves doing it. So, I'm sure there's that little question in there, like, why am I doing this? Why am I spending time away from my family? Why am I putting everybody through this? But went out there and absolutely performed. And as Dana White said, I mean, I love the respect he got from Dana White afterwards, right? Just saying, this is what makes people legends, man. When guys go out there and they take fights like this that they don't necessarily have to take. And Dustin said it, Eddie Alvarez gave me a shot when he didn't have to give me a shot. And now it's my time to pay it forward. And you and I talked about that coming in. He understands the way the business operates. He understands, and he wants to give that same opportunity that somebody gave to him. And it's admirable. Everything about the guy is admirable, man. I mean, everything about that dude is exactly what you want in a mixed martial artist and exactly what you want in a person, man. He's just amazing. And like I said, I'd love to see him fight this title. I asked him about it immediately. Hey, maybe this title shot. And he kind of said, I don't know. We got to go back and see, and we got to see what everybody wants. And I don't know if that was maybe just being a smart businessman. We've talked about that before too, right? Like, don't negotiate yourself out of opportunities before they've even been presented to you. So maybe he was being just cautious about it, or maybe he wasn't sure if he's ready to challenge for a title at this point in his career. But I can tell you, the fans want to see it. I want to see it. That man deserves the opportunity, man. He's just a great athlete and a great human being.
What I can tell you definitively, if he does get the Makhachev fight, he cannot jump a guillotine.
No.
And I know he says he's going to keep doing it, and he's bound to get one. And I understand how hard it is. It's like, this is my go-to. When it's there, I'm going to take it. But that is the one thing you cannot do against Islam.
Oh, 100%. And it's funny, I asked him about that as well, because as I was watching the fight, it did seem, because even right before he got the sequence where he landed the big shots, there was another chance to jump a gilly. And I'm like, please don't. And I thought, and he didn't. And I thought, okay, maybe he's realized.
Do the high elbow with it, though.
The high elbow one was nice. He almost had that one, right? I mean, he had a couple decent opportunities. That one was pretty decent. But right before he got that sequence, I thought he was going to jump it again. I'm like, maybe he actually realized, maybe I shouldn't do this. And how great is it that he's talking about Mateusz Gamrot was in the locker room saying, whatever you do, please don't jump the guillotine. You know what I mean? Mike Brown and the build up to it, they're putting together the game plan. It's like, whatever you do, don't jump the guillotine. And what does he do? Multiple times.
Don't jump the guillotine. I'm going to do it.
He's always jump the gilly. I love it. Dustin Poirier always jump the gilly.
What was that in, it's like the best meme there is now. It's Leonardo DiCaprio in that Wall Street movie or whatever it was, Wolf of Wall Street. And he's like,
yep.
I ain't going anywhere. Like, that's essentially Dustin Poirier with the guillotine.
He put out a meme on his own social media account the other was hilarious. It's that famous, the guy walking down the street with his girl, but he's looking back at the other girl, and the girl with him was the game plan, and the other girl was the guillotine choke. You know what I mean? He's like, I'm not sticking with the game plan. I'm jumping the gilly, baby. I thought that was hilarious, man. He is great.
Yeah.
But you're right.
Cemented.
It's not just a joke against Islam. If he gets that fight, do not jump the gilly.
Well, I mean, and that cost him in the Khabib fight. He did that in the Khabib fight. It was tight, but those guys can get out of that. It's a vicious, mean choke if you have it. If you 100% have it, if there's one sliver of hope, guys at that level can get out. But with that being said, I think a title shot, if nothing else, as a thank you for what you just did, a title shot is warranted.
Yeah. He deserves that, right? I mean, hell, if you want to call it, a career respective award, I mean, he's earned it for everything he's done in his career. But as you said, he gave that opportunity. He jumped up, took this fight that a lot of people didn't want, and that's what the UFC loves to see, right? They love guys that are willing to step up and take fights, even when they're not the higher rank, right? It's hard. When you're the lower rank guy, it's super easy to be like, yeah, I'll fight that higher rank guy. I want to take his number. It's hard when you're the higher rank guy and saying, well, I know that guy's trying to take my spot. I got nothing to gain out of this. He deserves it. He deserves it.
All right, real quick. Does BSD, Benoit Saint Denis, does that loss hurt him?
I don't think so. We talk about it, and I honestly believe it. I just think, number one, we talked about the antibiotics thing, so he knows there's a reasoning behind that. But number two, man, you need that. This was his first opportunity with the elite of the division. I think you take things out of that. You take some confidence. You take some lessons. I think this is just going to make him better in the long run, man. I think he'll be back. The guy, we know the background, the special forces background, the training that entails. This dude is going to be undeterred. He'll be back. He's still going to be a problem for people in that division.
I still think he jumps up higher in the division. I think his ranking still goes up.
That's interesting. It might. Yeah, we haven't seen the rankings of it. Maybe it does. I mean, it's certainly not going to go down. That's for sure.
Right. And then does it hurt him? No, because I still want to watch the dude fight, and I want him to fight. I want to watch him fight dudes in even the top 5 now, because he can hang.
That's it. It's more known now, right? We were praising Dustin Poirier because, like, man, you're kind of fighting this no-name guy. Well, he's not a no-name guy anymore, right? He just got a name by this performance with Dustin Poirier. So I agree with you. Whether or not the ranking goes up immediately, we'll see. But as far as just the overall and what it means, like I say, he's definitely not going down. And I think his opportunities, his respect level, everything, that is definitely going to go up, no question.
100%. Now, in the feature fight, we had MVP make his promotional debut. Made it look easy in a weird lackluster way, but he still did all the classic. He wasn't doing as much of as he normally does. He was doing the traditional karate point fighting, hopping around in the stance, keeping the hands real low. He definitely took Kevin Holland as a threat, and so didn't showboat as much as he usually does. What do you make of MVP's performance?
It was good, and I thought it was a good performance. Maybe not necessarily a great performance, not necessarily his best performance. And he kind of admitted as much afterwards. We've talked about it before, but listen, when people come from other organizations, I don't care how high of a level they were competing at in the other organization, you get a little bit of nerves. And I love the fact that he's like, man, it did kind of get to me a little bit. The name, the energy, it kind of got to me a little bit. I don't think I performed as well as I could, but as you said, he still got to play some of the greatest hits in there, right? You know what I mean? We got to see some of the moves. He did a little bit. He showed why he's so special. He shows why he's fun to watch. And it is nerve-wracking in there. I would say, for some reason, I was more nervous for what he was doing in the UFC cage than I have. I don't know why, but I was just
100%. I do
right?
too.
I don't know why that is. He's facing
he's going to get caught by doing this.
Yes. And listen, hey, how about the opportunity? He did go to the ground once, and he did get out of that rear naked choke. He did all the right things to get up and to get back to his feet. So he showed that he does have some grappling skills, but that's not what we want to see out of him. Kevin Holland, I didn't think fought a terrible fight, but we did say I think he's going to play into MVP's game a little bit too much, and I think he did. I think had Kevin Holland just been like, you know what? I know I can strike with this guy, but I'm going to grapple the whole time. I think he would have had a better chance of success. But by the end, you could tell he was tired, he was frustrated, and I just think he had a hard time getting down the rhythm.
I think the game plan, and we showed it early on. I mean, he closed the distance right away, put him against the fence. He wasn't. I said this. I've watched all of MVP's fights. I've literally watched them all. He is hard to take down, and he is even harder to keep down. Yep. Right. So you're going to have to get, who was it? His last loss? I forgot. Only a true blue wrestler guy. And he, and 99% of the time, it was him just holding on to MVP's legs, not even able to advance up the body. So it was, in my opinion, Kevin Holland's 100% game plan. He showed it early, was to close the distance, try and make it a grappling. Just MVP is that length poses a lot of problems. He can push that head down from a really high angle. He's so hot, he's so tall that he can dig an underhook a lot easier when they're in that clinch against the fence. And his defensive prowess there in that grappling, whether it be wrestling and or just in the clinch, I think is a lot better than most people think.
Yeah, I would agree with you, and we'll give Logan Storley the props. That was the man that beat him last. And you're right, Logan Storley, a D1 wrestler, right? I mean, a wrestler to the core, and that's why I think
like he held. And all he did in that, if you go back and watch it, MVP's trying to stand up the whole time, and he's doing all he can to keep him down. So there was so much inactivity in that fight because it was just a little chess match on the ground, and he was never able to advance up the body and flatten MVP out and then rain down punches. That didn't happen in that fight.
Yeah, if you're a fan that maybe wants to see that, let me just save you 25 minutes. Don't, all right? Eric just explained it to you very well. Save yourself that 25 minutes because you're right. It was an exciting fight. But I think honestly, that's the best route to beating Michael Page, right. Just understanding I'm going to make this a not exciting fight, and I'm probably going to get booed, but I don't care because I'm trying to win. So it'd be interesting to see what the UFC does next to them. I imagine he'll probably debut in the rankings this week. I mean, he beat a ranked fighter. I imagine, I haven't turned in my votes yet. I'll do that after we get done here, but I think I'll probably add him into the ranking. So we'll see if he shows up in the list. I think the Wonder Boy fight is the fight that I think everybody would want to see stylistically. I don't know if Wonder Boy is available right now, so we'll see. We'll see what they do with it. It was interesting to hear.
I think those styles could be way boring against each other.
See, you're not the first person I've heard say that, and it is absolutely positive that could happen, right? I mean, just because they're both kind of fun counter strikers, if nobody's willing to pull the trigger first, then they end up just having a staring contest at each other while they standing karate stances and yeah, you know what I mean? Like it could be a whole lot of that. So I do think you're right about that. I think it would be an interesting one, but there's a possibility that it's really, really bad. So Dana talked about it. He said, look, we gotta be creative, or we gotta match make this the right way was the exact quote. So I'll be interested to see what they come up with.
I'm going to give you two names.
All right, let's hear it.
Okay. One's a very hot take.
Okay.
But I want to preference it with saying I'm not interested with MVP making a title push.
Okay.
I want to see him in fun fights.
Yep.
That's what I want to see. Now he may disagree with me, but that's what me as a fan, I want to see. I think the guy's 36 years old. Is he at the end of the day? I mean, he probably came into the UFC 3 years too late, right? With that being said, I want to see MVP. I want to see this guy. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I want fun fights. I'm going to give you two names. Ian Gary.
Yeah.
And I think that could be a spectacular fight, and one that I believe, Ian Gary would come in as the betting favorite and all this. All right. Yep. But one that could really push Ian Gary to like the next level of a title challenger just by a fun fight, you know what I mean? And beating MVP at what MVP does, because he has the ability to do that. Or MVP could completely neutralize that length. It's length on length at that point, which would be really fun. The second one, I think you would geek out over this. Everybody else would be like, what are you talking about? Who are those guys? Danny Barlow.
Ah, yes. That one is out of left field, but I like it, man. Another tall dude for the weight class, massive for the division. That
a guy that you do not want to jump in at because he is so athletically freaky. The minute he sees you jumping in, he's uncorking that left. That, to me, if Danny Barlow had a bigger name, if this is 2 years from now, that fight would be happening next. I could guarantee it. And that would be one that everybody would want to see.
I love it. That's a great shout, man. If you are a Memphis area MMA fan, if you are a CFFC fan, then yes, that is a fight that absolutely makes all the sense in the world. So I love it. Probably not going to happen. But hey, you never know. You never know. I mean, if the UFC is saying they want to get creative, but probably not going to happen. But the Ian Gary one is really, really intriguing, right? Because I think that would serve both purposes. Like you said it, and I think you're right about this, and saying, what do we want for MVP? We want to see fun fights. You think about getting to a title run, right? I mean, some of the matchups in the division will be really, really tough for MVP. I mean, you start looking at like Colby Covington, Gilbert Burns, Shavkat, Belal, Usman. I mean, those are all really, really tough stylistic matchups for him. But if he wants to be a champion, you have to get through those. If you're not worried about being a champion, and as you said, MVP might disagree with you. He might want that opportunity to be a UFC champion. But, if the check comes right, if there's enough zeros on it, you know what I mean, then we don't worry about that belt. We figure something else out. But the Ian Gary one, I think, would be a good one because it wouldn't make you pick a lane either way yet, right? You know what I mean? You don't have to choose, are we just doing fun fights? Are we making a title run? So with Ian Gary, that one satisfies both, right? If you're MVP, because it is stylistically a fun fight. Their body frames, the way they would match up, I think it would be great. But it's also a guy that's currently ranked number 6 in the division. So it's not taking a matchup for just matchup sake and for fun's sake. It also moves you up the ladder. So I like that. And you know what? Ian Gary, I think, is the kind of guy as well that would love the challenge that would present, would love the spotlight that would come with it. Like Ian Gary understands. Yeah, he understands the business, right? Ian Gary understands the business side of things. He understands what appeals to fans and what gets people interested. And I think he's smart enough to realize that would be a fight that people MVP is great at selling fights, right? I'll tell you what was really cool this week was seeing how relaxed he was. And we were talking about it in the media. I think it was, in Bellator, he had to carry the weight of the entire promotion, right? Like he was the guy. And so this event is built around you, and you got to be the one making sure that eyeballs are tuning in. Here, he just gets to be a part of the machine. And I think because of that, he was great. He was amazing on the mic. He was great at the press conference and the ceremonial weigh-ins and all that. So he'll be that. He'll be a great dance partner for Ian Gary. So I think you might be onto something with there. I really like that one. If they do Barlow, though, I'll sign up to watch that as well. But I like that Ian Gary matchup.
Just imagine if Barlow made his debut 2 years ago and he built a bigger name. That's a fight everybody honestly would want to see.
Be fun. Can you see MVP like the way he does, right? Jumping in out of range and having to avoid that laser that Barlow brings, man. That left hand of God coming straight down the middle. I mean, that would be fun. That would be fun.
It's crazy. Like I said, hot take, but just because I started seeing Barlow, I think I reffed his amateur debut. I reffed his pro debut. I reffed his fight that got him into the Dana White Contender Series. I'm just a fan of the guy. He's a nice guy. I'm impartial to whether he wins or loses, but like he's a fun fighter to watch, and that's why I'm a fan of all fun fighters. But
I like seeing people get opportunities, right? I mean, that's the thing. When you see somebody and you like seeing them get opportunities, that would be an amazing opportunity for them.
Yeah. All right. So there's a lot that we could go more into on 299 because there was a lot of, just great moments, spectacular performances, but we're running short on time. So we have to get to the Predator, Francis Ngannou, getting scary flatlined. Scary.
Yeah, that was rough to watch. I was on air at CFFC 130 in Tampa on Friday when that fight was unfolding. And so I was able to very easily avoid spoilers, right? Because I'm working, I'm calling fights. I don't have my phone in my hand. I'm not on social media. And so I was able to completely avoid spoilers and then made it back to the hotel room. And I was like, all right, cool. I'm ready to watch this thing. And man, it was not what I was expecting. I've said it going in. I think Francis Ngannou was always fighting an uphill battle in these boxing matches, but that's what was so amazing about how great he did against Tyson Fury. I thought this one, okay. I thought this was going to go for Anthony Joshua's way simply because I'm like, all right, now the cat's out of the bag, so to speak, right? There's not such a mystery. Now it's like, is this guy? We don't know how he moves. We don't know what he does, et cetera, et cetera. We can game plan. We can do all these things. So I liked Anthony Joshua in the fight overall. I did not expect him to spark him out cold in the second round. And that was, as you said, scary knockout for Francis Ngannou.
Yeah. If you're going to ask what the worst possible scenario for Francis Ngannou was, that was the worst possible scenario for Francis Ngannou.
It was for a lot of reasons, right? I mean, not only look, I thought Anthony Joshua was incredible afterwards and saying, "Hey, man, you don't have to be done with boxing. Like, we'd love to see you back here, man, and heck, I'll help you out if I can. You deserve it. You've earned your spot at the table. You can do this." But I don't know. Is the multi-million-dollar payday going to be there for him? Does Saudi Arabia, do they want to shell out $20 million next time based on this, or does he have to go somewhere else? And what does it do for the interest in the PFL fights as well, right? Did that impact his reputation overall, his ability overall? Does he need to take some time off, from a knockout like that, right? I mean, we do. How recently have we been talking about this with Alexander Volkanovski, and it wasn't that scary of a knockout, and we said, man, you rushed back too soon. So I think you're right. I mean, it's weird because you don't want to say like, oh, this was awful for Francis Ngannou because there's 20 million reasons why it wasn't terrible, right? I mean, he brought a really nice payday.
Yeah, take the money out of the equation.
Yeah, he got to live his dream, right? He always wanted to be a pro boxer. So there's a lot of wins here. So if you can't sit here and be like, Francis screwed up by taking this fight. No. He didn't. He won. He lived his dream. He cashed the check. He's all those are great. But if you're talking about him moving forward as a fighter, yeah, absolutely the worst result because physically speaking, there's going to be concerns now. And I just wonder as well, what's the interest going to be? What kind of matchups are on the table? And what does this do for him moving forward?
As much as this pains me to say, it derails the Francis Ngannou hype, even in MMA. It was that bad of a knockout. And listen, I know they're different sports, but hype is hype. Prestige is prestige, and like an intimidation factor is an intimidation factor. It derailed a lot of that. I want to read a text. A very good friend of mine sent me a text that night, and he summed it up perfectly. It kind of looks like what would happen if a guy pushing 40 who started boxing full-time 3 years ago went up against an Olympic gold medalist and a two-time world champion.
Yeah, I mean... That's the reality of it, right? I mean, I know everybody got super excited after the Tyson Fury fight. I saw a lot of people that were like, oh, yeah, see, this is Francis's realm, man. This is where he's going to shine. He really is that good, but it was always a dangerous game. And as you said, I mean, there's levels to this, right? And there are levels, and Anthony Joshua is at a different level. So unfortunate. I mean, maybe not completely unpredictable, but I just didn't see it being that savage and that brutal. And it's it's sad too, because like I had just talked about how the fact that I thought Renan Ferreira, what he did to Ryan Bader, meant that the PFL, finally had a guy that I think people are going to care about, right? Like that I think that this is a great matchup. But now I didn't expect that the flip side of it is maybe people aren't as interested in the matchup just because they don't care as much, or like you said, there's not that intimidation factor and all those things. And there's still going to be plenty of bright days ahead. We've talked about it here, right? Where even if Francis never fights for the PFL, he still has a chance to be very valuable there in terms of like heading up the efforts in Africa and all the expansion there. And that's something near and dear to his heart. So that's all awesome. But it was kind of it had to have had a negative impact on the interest in his fights moving forward. It had to.
So my worry about everything after the Fury fight was that he was never going to fight MMA again, right? And then we talked about it last week, is, especially if he has a decent, even a decent showing against Joshua, he could never fight MMA again because the paydays are just too big. Now, this is a want to question. If he wants to continue combat sports in any realm, it has to be MMA next. It has to be. And it cannot be for that super fight PFL. He has to get a devastating win, in my opinion, to get that big allure back. And it's just because of the common fans in PFL. Like, I know they're two different sports. I know the skill set on the feet are completely different. But to build that PFL super fight, like you just said, something has to precede it. And something big and a big knockout has to precede it to then build it into the juggernaut that the PFL wants to build it into. It's just the reality, in my opinion.
Eric, if you see any 6'7" Brazilians walking around Memphis today, I'm going to ask that you avoid them, because that is Renan Ferreira, and he is pissed at you that what you're saying right now, right? He wants that
any
fight.
of it alive?
but you're right. You're right. I mean, it's the fan interest is going to be. I know Renan's going to want that because he's going to want that opportunity to put that name on his record, and he's going to want the payday that supposedly comes along with it. We heard about all those. I was only talking
about it from a PFL standpoint, the business of the PFL standpoint.
No, you're right, because they're going to have to cut two rather large checks to two rather large gentlemen, and they might not get a rather large amount of pay-per-views on the other side of it in return. So I think you are 100% right. In order to really get that interest back, that's interesting because you're spot on. But, man, what do you do? I mean, you just find somebody that you feel is a favorable matchup and just ask Renan Ferreira to hold on, I guess, and we got to do one more in the meantime?
Yeah, I mean, it could be like bringing a Junior Dos Santos, for a one-off. Could be, something like that, like somebody with good name value that that you're confident that Dos Anjos could, or that Ngannou could still win, but poses it big enough, and somebody who's going to stand in front of him too. You know what I mean? So it's very doable, and doable in the right way that really builds his credibility back. And I'm saying credibility, and that does not mean that he is not credible. But I'm just saying in that common person's mind that they would want to see, a PFL super fight with him. Something has to precede it. I don't know what it is. I kind of laid out somewhat of a blueprint that it could be, but something needs to happen before it.
Yeah, you're right. It's funny. I was trying to look for the Bellator heavyweight rankings to see who they have on the roster right now and see what might be a name, but I guess they don't do the rankings anymore. I didn't realize they had scrapped the rankings. Things are changing over there. I was trying to see who they have on the roster that would make sense, and maybe they didn't have to bring in a high price free agent, because then it still ends up being expensive, and maybe it's counterproductive for what you're trying to do. But yeah, if you're trying to get some experience in it, it's going to be there. I do wonder what did make me think as well. You were like, hey, the interest has got to be in MMA. I wonder, though, if there's some heavyweight boxers that are now even more so like licking their chops and being like, hey, he's still a big name, and I just saw what happened to him. So I wonder if he will get some payday, some
You
big
don't think
payday
Ruiz
offers.
wants to fight him next?
That's what I was thinking, right? Ruiz has got to be going to his team, like, get him on. Let's get this guy on the phone right now. Let's get this contract signed. Tell him we'll wait while he heals up, but let's get the ink on the paper, because they probably see it. And again, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but I'm just talking to say the way they probably look at it is that is easy pickings, right, for me, and it comes along with a big payday. So I do wonder if maybe he's going to get more boxing offers than we anticipate because of that, because they just see it as a payday versus, a big super fight, so to speak.
Francis Ngannou is a freak of nature. He has one-shot KO power. He was the UFC heavyweight champion of the world. He gave Tyson Fury everything he wanted. But I'm going to go back and I'm going to read this text that my friend so eloquently put to me. That fight kind of looks like what would happen if a guy pushing 40 who started boxing 3 years ago went up against an Olympic gold medalist and two-time world champion. Like, listen, unless you were a real, have complete blinders on, you knew this was a possibility. You knew it, unless you had blinders on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you can't be so much of a Francis apologist. You really can't. This was the scenario, the worst case scenario that could happen. And there was a lot of pundits out there that are like, but he stepped up and he did this. And Joshua, what a resurgent. I mean, listen, I think you know where I'm going with this, right? But at the end of the day, if those blinders were off, this was a probable scenario the entire time. And Dana White has taken a lot of slack for saying if Tyson Fury would have trained, this probably would have happened there. But in reality, he's probably right there. And I love that Francis got out of his wheelhouse. I love that Francis, everything that he's done, he took his shot and he got value for it. But take the blinders off too, everybody.
Yeah. You're spot on, and I know it's not necessarily popular to say that, but you're right. I didn't expect him to win the fight against Tyson Fury. Obviously, it was way more competitive than even I thought it was going to be. I didn't expect him to win here. I didn't think he was going to get sparked scarily cold in the second round, but I didn't pick him in either one of these fights because of exactly what you said. And what Dana said is true. There's a reason that he doesn't like to do these crossover matchups because that's the likely scenario. There's a reason that boxers aren't lining up to jump into mixed martial arts and to jump into UFC. It's two entirely different sports. It's two entirely different skill sets. So you're right. This was always the likely scenario. But again, I mean, and you're right. I think too many people are being far too kind in their, being apologists, as you said. But I mean, he did still, good for Francis. He did live his dream. He always wanted to do it. He wanted to be a boxer. He grew up idolizing Mike Tyson before he ever knew anything about MMA. He got to live that dream. He got paid for it, man. He put that cash in the bank. So all those things are good. You can't say he made a bad decision by doing it. But as you said, this was just always the most likely scenario with these crossover matchups. It just always is. It's two different skill sets. It's two different sports.
It is, and I want people to. I don't want MMA people to be like, we can compete with the boxers at their sport at their highest level. We can't, and I'm an MMA guy, and I know we can't. Right,
100%. And
take those blinders off and be honest about it.
Right. And it's funny because if ever there was a division in which you think maybe you can, it would be heavyweight, right? Because you're like, well, they got one shot power, but it's not, man. It's a totally different art, man. If you've ever like trained or sparred or gone a few rounds with somebody that is a specialist in boxing, obviously we're talking about highly different levels of skills than, at our recreational level versus the professional level. But you see the difference right away. Just the movement is different. Everything, the cardio is different. I mean, all of it, every last aspect of it. So that's why I'll be honest with you. I really was never all that into the crossover appeal either. I kind of hated to see Francis go because I feel like we got robbed of some fights that we would have seen that could have been some amazing heavyweight matchups that we didn't get to see because of it. But again, can't stop a guy from chasing his dreams, and you can't hate on a guy for going and getting paid.
But at the end of the day, so many people wanted to see Francis stick it to the UFC so bad that they inflated what was possible of him doing in boxing, that in a scenario that probably wasn't 100% realistic. Now, he exceeded everybody's expectations against Tyson Fury. Right, he really did. But again, I go back to, if those blinders were off, this was a probable scenario. And what made it even worse is that we were shocked that it didn't happen in Fury fight.
Yeah, you're right. You're 100% right. And now, because I will be honest with you, now I start thinking, well, what if he goes in there and he faces Renan Ferreira, who, by the way, is a huge athletic heavyweight with power, and Francis is getting a little bit older, right? I mean, he's starting to get up there a little bit. The knees aren't great, you know what I mean? And what if he gets sparked again by Renan Ferreira? Then what does that do, to talk about his legacy and to impact, who he really was in his whole career? And he lost a couple years while he was waiting out the contract and didn't necessarily get that many matchups. So, it's there's a lot of ways this thing can go from here. That's sure. The good thing is he does have the PFL gig lined up, and heading PFL Africa, and you can see, man, their global expansion is for real, man. They're expanding around the world, and I think that'll be cool for him. I mean, that'll be meaningful if he can really help the sport grow on his home continent of Africa, which is something he wants to do. But again, we're just talking about the competitive side of it and him as a fighter, and there are a lot of question marks now after this.
Well, and I always go back to, like, listen, Francis Ngannou is still, the lineal heavyweight champion of the world in MMA. He just is, right?
Right.
That's his best path still to this day, in my opinion. And I don't want, and I'm not here to discredit Francis Ngannou because, a lot of people say, let's say Max Holloway's the best boxer in mixed martial arts, like best pure boxer in mixed martial arts, whatever. He goes up against Lomachenko or Teofimo Lopez. He might not land a punch.
Would not look good. And I hate to say that, but it's real. And I always say,
different sport. They're not the same. We can't treat them the same.
You can't. And I always say, look, I mean, if you add in leg kicks, then maybe it looks a little bit different. You know what I mean? If you add in takedowns, it definitely looks different. You know what I mean? But in just pure boxing, yeah, you're right. Stop calling for our guys to cross over and go over there, because all we're doing is costing ourselves fights that are winnable fights with our guys in our sport that we want to see. You're just not going to compete at the high level.
My heart hurts that Francis Ngannou got flatlined that way.
It sucks. I didn't want to see it. It was late at night. I was watching the replay. I was all excited after CFFC. I was like, let's see how Francis does. And then I kind of had to just close my computer and
it brought us back to reality. I mean, it really did. It brought us back to what we've been saying all the line, and our egos got inflated over the Tyson Fury fight, and it got us back to reality. And I don't want to see him anymore. I do not want to see our guys, our MMA guys, go to boxing anymore. I don't want to see it. And now I know the paydays are bigger, this, that, and the other, but this, like, at the end of the day, like, yeah, he's set for life. But I mean, who lost biggest in that? The answer's the PFL.
Yeah. That took a big hit, man. And I know, because we've said all along, right, that we thought the PFL was kind of winning, even though he wasn't competing for them, right? Because they're getting free press and they're getting to talk about their guy, et cetera, et cetera. Even though they weren't cutting him a check for fighting, they were still getting to kind of trot him out there and talk about the guy that's part of the organization. And now, I mean, yeah, now we're sitting here saying, gosh, is there appeal to the Hennifer fight or not? Maybe there's not. So, yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame. It was. Again, a not unforeseeable scenario, but at the same time, a very, very unfortunate one.
All right. UFC 299 was in the books, O'Malley, and still Dustin the Diamond Poirier is still that guy. Looks like he's setting up for a potential title shot. MVP looked like MVP, a little docile version of him, but some fun fights we both want to see. And Francis hurt our heart, and we never want to see anybody get knocked out that bad. But it happened. Where he goes from here, we'll stay tuned. What do you got going on this weekend, Mr. Morgan?
Well, the UFC is in the Apex this weekend. It is Tai Tuivasa versus Martin Tybura. But my birthday is Friday, so if you want to see me at the UFC event on Saturday, do not look on press row. I am going to be sitting in the stands with a frosty beverage in my hand, celebrating my birthday, enjoying it, taking the fights in as a fan. So I'm looking forward to just kind of hanging out this weekend. How about you?
Man, I got 3 Grizzly games this week, one of which is on Saturday night. So it's a busy week for me. That's what I will be doing. But hey, we're only 10 more games left, 10 more home games left, but who's counting?
You, clearly.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I'm counting. So, well, anyways, for John Morgan, I'm Eric McMahon. Enjoy the fights.